Good afternoon. My name is Josh Tucker. It's really an honor and privilege to be here with all of you. I also got a note from the translator to speak slowly so he can keep up, and that is extremely difficult for me as I am a super fast talker generally. So I'll try to keep it in rhythm for you. But my goal is to get him tongue-tied by the end of this. So again, my name is Josh Tucker. I am the former director of social content for the NFL. As of Wednesday of last week was my final day. I'm now moving to Endeavor, where I'll be, WME IMG Endeavor, where I'll be overseeing social and digital content and sponsorship. My career began with the Dodgers and really with the rise of social media. And it's really, if you look at it, an incredible time when I graduated college, in that this industry didn't exist as it did today. And when I began with the Dodgers, I was the first full-time social media coordinator in Major League Baseball. And we were programming Facebook and Twitter exclusively at that time. And at that time, and this is 2012, rich media didn't really exist. So we were posting copy-only updates with links and GIFs when possible. By the time I left the Dodgers 3 years later, we went from programming 2 channels to 7 channels. And the addition of Instagram, Vine, Tumblr, and now we again look and Vine no longer exists. So this is a rapidly evolving industry. And hopefully I'll be able to give you some insight into our content programming strategy at the NFL for the last 2.5 years since while I was there. And in looking at the NFL at a macro level and our programming strategies, our league priorities are 3 things. One is the game of football, and really that comes down to the integrity of the game, player safety, and making sure that we're putting the best product out on the field for our fans to consume. Second priority is our fans, and this really should be our first priority, and it is. Change that on the next presentation. But our fans are at the core of everything that we do, and so everything at every level of the league is aimed at programming for our fans. And then engagement, and making sure that experiences on linear, in stadium, on digital are geared towards engagement. Our digital group falls within the media team. And so our media objectives are also threefold. And that's reach and engagement, creating economic value, and building strategic value. Then looking at our digital media strategies, and this is where my team really falls, is 1, we want to celebrate football everywhere. And this is really the core of everything we do, is celebrating football, celebrating our players, celebrating our fans in any way that we can. 2 is building the home of the NFL on O&O, our owned and operated channels. And 3 is initiating digital transformation. And so we want to be innovative, we want to be disruptive, we want to be leaders in the industry on social and digital. Looking at the NFL social landscape, and so this is really how we program our channels to capitalize on the full ecosystem. And it's the NFL channels, which is at NFL on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. YouTube, it's youtube.com/NFL, but really the way that we categorize social is Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And our total audience on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for the NFL is 54 million followers. That number is not deduped. But if you look at our clubs, this is the 30 teams. They represent about 180 million followers on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Our players reached 302 million followers on those 3 platforms in aggregate. And so when we look at NFL social, we really categorize it in these 3 areas to make sure that we're maximizing this full ecosystem. Looking at what we do from NFL social, and the primary goal of NFL social, so that 54 million followers number, is to engage our audience with social first, behind the scenes content and game action they can't get anywhere else. And this is really exciting for us, and this is, we focus on personality-driven helmet-off content. How are we telling our player stories, our club stories, in a unique way? And the competitive advantage that we have are three main areas. One, the rights that we own. These are the broadcast rights that the publishers are paying for on digital, but also the traditional rights on linear television. Access. We have access, unprecedented access, that no other publisher in football has. We have access to training, we have access to the games, we have 2 social producers on every sideline of every football game, capturing content that can be immediately published from their cell phones. And then distribution. For example, and this is one distribution channel that we use, Giphy. By show of hands, how many of you are familiar with Giphy, the platform? All right, so a fair amount. To give you an understanding of how widespread our Giphy channel is, we had 16.3 billion views of NFL-related GIFs last year. So in programming NFL social, it's 3 areas. It's rights. These are broadcast.
I bet he's dying that he ended up, look at this. I mean, can you imagine being Trey Sullivan and knowing contact is coming and absolutely nothing but the bottom of the...
So that's a full clip that we shared on Instagram. And so that's not the full highlight, but it's the most snackable, bite size. It's not the snack, it's the snack, not the meal, like Jeff Bezos said. But that's what we're programming for. We want to be thumb-stopping on your timeline and create a moment that you see and you realize the athletic prowess of our players. Again, celebrating football. Then it's access, and we are on the sidelines, like I mentioned, of every game. So making sure that we capture moments like this. And this is Odell Beckham Jr. Engaging with Marquise Goodwin, another player on the 49ers' sister. And we were able to capture this on a mobile device and share this natively. And if you can see, it has over 130,000 engagements on our Twitter channel. And so this moment is really a beautiful moment between 2 players and one of the players' disabled sister. And then again, the distribution of our own audience is the last piece. So in looking at our programming strategy, there's 3 key areas that we aim to do this with our purpose. And we want to make sure that in every single post that we publish, that we're providing value to our fans. And so the 3 ways that we drive purpose through social are: 1, promotion, making sure that we're promoting our brand effectively; public relations, messaging, media assets; 2 is monetization, and this is a key area. And we do that in 3 ways as well. Through our platform partnerships, and these are those highlights, deals on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Also licensing through merch sales, and then 3 is sponsorship, and this is that branded content piece that Max really was detailing. And then engagement, and this is what we pride ourselves on, and that was what you saw on that first slide, is engagement. So how do we engage our fans, our clubs, and our players through social? Then in looking at our programming strategy, so this is a little different in its creating organic content on behalf of the NFL. And then we want to make sure that we're amplifying that. So our distribution strategy is through our own channels, through our partnerships, which are our platform partnerships, and then influencers. And I'll get into our influencers in a few slides. But we categorize influencers in a number of different ways. In looking at the platform partnerships, and these are the 5 platforms that our team is responsible for programming within the social group. We program each of these channels differently, and there's different nuances to each platform. And unless you really speak the language of your community on each of those platforms and truly understand that community and the metaphor and the ways that they're engaging, you don't really truly speak their language. So we need to speak native to each fan following us on each platform. And so the way that we program content is different on each of those channels. The middle number that you see is the NFL demo of under 35 fans by each platform as well. And so a couple things that I'll note. On Facebook and Instagram, as well as Snapchat, we've prioritized the story format that Max mentioned. And so we've seen the platforms prioritize that. Our fans appetite for consumption of that type of content, vertical, short-form content, and really have focused on creating that or prioritizing that. On Twitter, it's real-time highlights. We, in a single week, are publishing upwards of 200 single game highlight or single play highlights on Twitter. Live programming. We have 2 live shows on Twitter each week. One is under the Checkdown umbrella, and the second is it's called Around the NFL, which is more of a hardcore football show. On Snapchat, 93% of our audience is under the age of 35. And so we've really shifted our focus to prioritize Snapchat as well as the other channels, but to create unique content on that platform. The last is YouTube, and here's where we're experimenting with more long-form content, but it's also previews, recaps, and compilations. In looking at programming, and this slide is a little overwhelming, so we'll take a second to look through it. With any single piece of content, there are over 36 ways we can distribute that content across our channels. So what we try to do is identify the piece of content, whether it's that single clip highlight of Ezekiel Elliott hurdling the other player that you saw on that first slide, and then figure out how to distribute it across all of these channels. And so the check marks are ways that we're currently engaging. The X's are ways that we're not, but those are available on the platform. So any single piece of content can be adapted to each channel in a number of ways. So let's look at Instagram specifically. So there's native posts, right? Photo, carousel, which is multiple photos or videos. There's native videos, which is essentially video on demand. There's Instagram Live. There are Instagram Stories, which is also can be a static image or a video image, or a video. We can add a poll on that if we want. We can ask questions through that format. There's also direct stories, in sending stories directly to other fans, and then direct messages with our players. So that's the way that we view each of these platforms and how we can take that content and customize it to each channel. Looking at Snapchat, like I said earlier, the numbers here are pretty astounding for us. And so this season to date, we have reached 52 million unique viewers globally. 32% of our consumption is from 13 to 17-year-olds on Snapchat. And our Week 5 Sunday story had 1.85 million unique viewers. This is also a platform that we don't publish hardcore football content on. We look to engage new fans and evangelize new fans by bringing them in through relatable topics. So with the rise of popularity of Fortnite, how Fortnite took over the NFL locker room, for example. In looking at some of our content and our top performing content, we have a dedicated social lab. And this social lab are world-class illustrators and graphic designers that are creating content that is relevant, that is timely. And these are pieces of content that we published in real time following some tentpole events. Or sorry, not tentpole events, some regular season marquee matchups. And it just to show the creativity and thought that goes into the content. All of this content was prepared prior to the game. So as we look to evolve our content, it really is meant to be focused on creating this personality-driven helmet-off content. And so at any tentpole event and any time we engage with a player, we want to create content that is not only meaningful for our fans, but the players will remember and enjoy coming back to work with us. So at Rookie Premiere, which is an event when the rookies wear their jerseys for the first time, the first-year players wear their jerseys for the first time, we asked them to try to doodle their team logos from memory. They failed tremendously. At the NFL draft, we put a ball pit on the red carpet and asked the rookies to step in, put a camera 12 feet above the ball pit, and ask them to dive into the ball pit. So every time that we're engaging with our players, we want to create this experiential, fun experience for them, but also a meaningful piece of content that we also deliver to the player to use on their channels. So as you can see here, this post was created by us and our team, but given to Marshawn Lattimore to publish on his channels. So we view our players as distribution for NFL social. The checkdown, and this is a newer property launched in the fall of 2017. Our goal here was to reclaim some of the audience lost to House of Highlights, Bleacher Report, the Barstools of the world. They were doing a better job of telling NFL stories outside of the field than we were. And so we programmed the checkdown in 3 ways. One is owned assets. How do we use our rights most effectively? 2 is curation of top player, club content, but also football-related stories off the field. And then 3 is original content. And so this channel is a standalone property that allows us to push the limits of NFL social creativity. It's an unbranded account, but this account, since its launch in fall of 2017, has had over 2 billion impressions across social channels on its own, has had over 875 million video views across Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and our audience is between, or 83% of our audience is between 13 to 34 years old. Our LCC program, the 2 social producers that I mentioned on the sideline of every game, this is a really unique program that few sports leagues have. We have 2 social producers at the sidelines of every game with a cell phone standing there capturing supplemental content to our broadcasts. We've found that this content on our social channels performs better than a lot of our broadcast highlights. So there are 66, 2 in each market and then 2 in London, social producers that are at the game 4 hours before each game, capturing arrivals, capturing pregame workouts, and capturing content during the game from the sidelines as well as post-game content. Here's a little 60-second sizzle on the LCC program.
Hey, yo, Mac, ladies and gentlemen.
So all of this So our live content correspondence program, these are the social producers on the sidelines of every game. This program now extends 365 days a year. And what you saw in that video, a glimpse of it, is really the distribution model of League Club Player and utilizing that full ecosystem to reach as many fans as possible. In doing that, we have become hyper-focused on helping our players develop their audiences on social. We are the only league to have a formalized player social media initiative that is dedicated to that audience of 302 million followers. And so our team engages with about 40% of the total player audience. And the goal here is really to capture on the club, like looking at the club level. So what you're seeing is club followers on the left, then player followers on the right, broken down by platform. The blue in the player column are players that we're working with on a tool that we have called Socially. And that allows us to send content to the players, but also receive content from the players. So if you look at Twitter and Instagram, 2 of the platforms that we prioritized for fan engagement purposes, we are working with 88% of the total player audience on Twitter and 85% of the total player audience on Instagram. Those numbers significantly dwarf the club audiences. So what we're doing is reaching a larger group of engaged fans through our players. So we have a dedicated team to helping our players grow and engage their fans on social. The reason that we do this is twofold. Our players engage at a higher rate than both the NFL and clubs. So looking at our league, clubs, and players by Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, our players across each platform engage at a higher rate significantly than our clubs or the league does. And the same content is often more impactful from a player's channels than it is from the league or club, and is an opportunity to reach a much larger audience. So looking at this piece of content specifically, and you saw this in the previous video, this was published on the team account where the team is on Instagram, on Twitter, 3.37 million followers. Juju Smith-Schuster has 745,000 followers, so a fraction of the total audience, but engaged at a much higher rate, and total interactions significantly dwarf the club's interactions on the same piece of content. And if we could play this video. So think about how meaningful this is to come from a player versus the team, where a player can say in his own voice why he cherishes the relationship that he has with the other player on the field. So in this player social media initiative, this is the type of content that we share with our players. Game photos, custom graphics, live content correspondence content, celebration videos, original videos and edits, NFL films, and network content. And because we're content creators on the NFL, we've identified best practices and now share that with our players who are not content creators. They don't know what to post, when to post, and how to post it. So we try to make that as seamless as possible for them. And all of this content significantly overperforms on their channels. We've now taken this program to the next evolution, and that is what we call our player social correspondence. So we're working with a pilot group of players. They send us a video pregame, a selfie video, telling us what they're looking forward to at the beginning of the game. And then we splice that with content we've captured with the live content correspondence, with our broadcast footage, and all of the access that we have. And so all of this content that we deliver to our players is their top performing content. And if you look at the numbers, the engagements, the video views, it's pretty staggering. And it allows us to reach such a broader audience. And we'll show you one of these examples of these video edits. And again, something that we combat at the NFL that a lot of the other leagues don't have is the helmets on. And the helmets are on throughout the game for our players. So there's a lack of facial recognition for a lot of our players. So we try to start each clip with a shot of the player's face and then move into the started this game, and we were able, by the time that he got to his locker, post-game, deliver this video asset to him through our tool for him to publish on his channels. This is now Baker's most viewed video on his Instagram channel, accumulating almost 1 million video views on his channel alone. So one example of how this program works and how we tap each lever of the program to really maximize that league club player distribution is here in what we call our Juju Smith-Schuster bike case study. And Juju is one of the most prolific publishers on social. He's really an incredible player, but even better personality on social media. And so Juju also did not know how to drive, so he biked. He rode a bicycle to each practice. That bicycle was stolen on October 24th, this is last year. That bicycle was stolen, and Juju tweeted that his bike was stolen at 11:47 a.m. We tapped another player in the program, Antonio Brown, to tweet out this custom graphic less than an hour later, saying, I'll give 2 tickets to the Steelers' next home game to whoever returns Juju's bike. So we've now generated buzz on this already silly football moment. This post on Antonio's account overperformed by 10.3 times, according to CrowdTangle. We then sent out a video request through that tool to 3 players, Ryan Shazier, Antonio Brown, and Vince Williams, asking them for videos to create a spoof of A Football Life, which is a serious football story video that we do. We received those videos, or we sent those videos to the players at 4:29 p.m. We then customized this new video featuring these players and delivered it back to Juju and also published it on the checkdown for him to publish it. That piece of content received almost 50,000 engagements on Juju's channels and had over 1 million videos on his channel as well. That was published the following day. We then created a custom piece of content with a twist on Pee Wee Herman, an American film, and showing how he's going to lock up his bike. So we really celebrated this silly moment in football culture. And as a result, the success that we saw from Juju on Twitter, he posted 2 native tweets. One, that he lost his bike, and 2, 2 custom videos that we created. One is the Juju and his football life, and 2, how he's going to lock his bike. And he received over 100,000 engagements, grew by 120,000 followers in 24 hours, a growth rate of over 105%. So this is really how we're trying to celebrate football at all levels. We're trying to celebrate silly stories. We're trying to drive personality-driven, helmet-off content. But we're also trying to create unique player stories and then use the league's distribution to amplify those player stories. That's it for me. I hope this says thank you. So thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Before we start, let me begin by asking this question. What was the most frequent word you have seen from the first and second presentations? Social media, and one more? Engagement. And one might be, I was not actually counting, but I believe it was a content. It was a content. So as Max Barnett, also Judge Tucker said, content rules everything. So we are going to talk about also, before I start, I'd like to express a sincere appreciation for the Caspo and Kids to organize this great conference. Also, they have done a great job to invite these renowned guest speakers from all around the world. So we are sharing very, very valuable information. Okay, I have a full of questions for you. Ready? Instead of summarizing your presentations, I have full of questions. Also, it was delivered by our audiences here today. So, can I start?
Please.
Okay. But also, you should know that you've been talking to everything relating to the American football, right? But American football, NFL, and American football, we don't have much knowledge about American football yet in South Korea because American football is still played as a collegiate club level of the sport in South Korea. So please understand that is really actual situation in Korea. Okay, let me go to the first question. I'm kind of regretting why we are talking about the new era of the media, but I'm organizing every information in this old-fashioned way. So, okay, first question. There are many questions raised from our audiences, but first question. How do you forecast social media and its environment after a decade? What are going to be the most eminent changes in terms of social media?
So it's extreme. First, I want to address the NFL topic internationally. Completely understand that football is almost foreign globally, and it's a second-tier sport here. to give you some context of how big domestically the NFL is in the United States, our Week 11 Monday Night Football game, which is a regular season game, received higher ratings. Nielsen, fact check me. Received higher ratings than every single World Series game, as well as any NBA Finals game. And so that's the scale of the NFL domestically. A huge priority moving forward for the league is international growth. To your question, how can I forecast social moving forward is extremely difficult. And what I led my presentation with is this world 10 years ago did not exist. So how can we forecast social 10 years from now, in that the platforms are continually evolving, the trends on each platform are continually evolving. And so the two areas that I'm excited about or focused on, one is gamification. And in the United States, we have a game called HQ, which I think is just scratching the surface of live gamification and live engagement. And so how can we keep fans engaged throughout an entire game through gamification? That really excites me. And so predictive gaming, gambling even. But at the beginning of each drive, can we have fans predict whether a team is going to score a touchdown, whether they're going to turn the ball over? So that's one, gamification. Two is experiential. And there's an experiential renaissance in the United States, and I imagine here as well, because of social media and creating made-for-social moments. A huge success story in the United States right now is something called the Museum of Ice Cream. And basically, it's a museum that is dedicated purely to creating made-for-social moments. And so how can we capitalize on that in sports and make it so that you must go to a stadium to consume a game, and creating these experiential made-for-social moments throughout sports?
Okay, thank you for your answer. But you've been saying a lot about how to build branding and positioning, and that will be consequently end with the higher fan engagement. So, but for the NFL, the final goal of your all kinds of social media activities will be enhancing the actual participation rate. Is that?
Engagement rate?
Yeah, and not just engagement rate, like bring them over to the actual site, actual venue for the game, to enjoy the game.
Yeah, so we look at a ton of metrics. Fan engagement, fan growth across channels is huge. Video views, video watch time. Depending on each platform, we look at different metrics, but our ultimate goal is fan engagement.
Fan engagement. Fan engagement means just a communication, or on the internet, or having them coming over.
Yeah, well, I think with social media, the key is to recognize that it is social media. And so with social, we always need to be conscious that it's a social interaction and that we're not just broadcasting at our fans. And so taking our fans into consideration in every post is a huge priority of ours.
Okay, thank you. Can I move on to the next?
Please.
Yes, okay.
Tough questions.
By looking at, to prepare today's session, I was looking at the NFL and what you have done. And what attracted me was your check down. And it's through a check down, you are not just promoting the game and other issues. You are just talking about the club city, the city itself, and other relevant issues such as the social, cultural, and entertaining issues relating to the team and the city itself. So the question is, how do you generate those contents for those collaborative manner?
So I'm really excited that you highlighted the check down, because it was a big project of mine to launch that at the NFL. And so the rationale was really what Max cited with the NASCAR wives and the success of reality television even, and these celebrities, and trying to really build that out for the NFL. And so celebrating culture of the NFL beyond the sport. And so the way that we program the checkdown is 3 areas, is through our own content, through curation, and then original content creation. What we're trying to do there is bring new fans into the game. And so we hope that a snackable piece of content, or our rapid recaps, or our offbeat plays, or moments that you wouldn't traditionally find on NFL.com or NFL Social might bring new fans into the sport.
Okay, thank you. Also, can you give us a more insight for those content for your content? Because in my understanding, your content can be broadly divided into 2 different ways. One is projected and planned content. The others are just naturally occurring because of the high fan engagement, like the Juju Spike return. But
Yeah.
you also mentioned that Juju Spike return was more like after that issue, you kind of intervene into that issue as a PR project, right? So can you give us some more info about that?
So ultimately at every place within the organization, we're looking to celebrate football. And so our team is always 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We are trying to find stories that will transcend the sport. An example of that is there's this kid, Blaze. He's a 13-year-old, and he posts his videos of flag football videos, amateur videos, on his Instagram account. And we saw this video. He is this big, and he's crushing all these kids, juking them out. And it's really impressive. And so we saw this video going viral. We share that content on our channels. But then we're the NFL, and we have access that no other property has. So how can we take that story and blow it up? And so what we did is we reached out to Blaze through Instagram. We invited him. We found out that he was located in Tampa Bay and was a huge Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan. So we then we connected with the Buccaneers. We brought Blaze to a practice at the Buccaneers facility, where he then got to play with Buccaneers players. We then created an original piece of content out of that and distributed it across our channels, Blaze's channels, and the Buccaneers channels. That was then picked up by other media properties. So we're always looking for those unique stories, but then the real win and the real success is taking that story and not only amplifying it, but creating a new story around it.
Thank you. And also, our guest, I'd like to make sure that I'm asking questions from you all. And last question, not the last question, 3 questions from our audiences, and also I'm going to have you my personal questions.
Oh,
okay?
man.
So, one last question, two more questions from our audiences. Since you are utilizing all kinds of platforms, social media platforms, besides the homepage, NFL.com, so what is unique function, or is there any difference where you handle it between the homepage and social media platform?
We want to meet fans on their timeline, wherever that is. And so .com, our homepage, NFL.com, is definitely a point of emphasis in the digital organization. But we want to make sure that we're meeting fans on their timelines. And so social is a proactive engagement. We're meeting them on their timeline. A fan is on Facebook, they're on Twitter, they see our content as a result of a share or because they follow our page. If you're going to NFL.com, it's an active engagement, and they've proactively gone to NFL.com. So we program accordingly, and .com is programmed to a football fan. Our social channels try to reach a broader audience than that.
Okay. So targets are somewhat different.
Yeah, and
Same,
I think,
but somewhat different.
So we look at whether it's linear television, so traditional, digital, .com, mobile, OTT, social, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. we look at all of those as different distribution methods. And so our team evaluates and has become experts at how to program those channels accordingly.
Thank you. And also, I picked up another very new questions from our audiences. Also, you can see that. Platform is monopolized by huge companies, such as Netflix and YouTube. So those for the small organization, small, maybe sport-related organization, do you think, is it possible to create platform rather than content?
So if I understand the question correctly, is it possible to create a new
Their
platform?
Yeah, I believe so. He's trying to, maybe there must be someone who asked this question, who raised this question, like come up doing their business with their own platform, or just.
Yeah, so I think, and I hope I answer this correctly, good content is good content, regardless of the platform. And that needs to be, as social producers, as digital producers, as producers of content on any platform, that needs to be your focus. And you said at the beginning of this, content is king. And we, regardless of the platform, good content transcends. And algorithms favor good content. So I hope I answered this question effectively, but really, we need to be smart marketers in everything that we do.
Okay, thank you. I think I picked up somewhat.
Oh, man.
Okay, here are my questions. Be ready. Okay.
okay.
It's going to be a really hypothetical. Don't take it wrong. Or, okay. Are you Democrat or Republican? You are talking to we are all here. You are in a Republic of Korea, so we are all Republicans. So my question is it hypothetical? Due to many platforms and potential noise against him, Trump is about to restrict the number of social platforms in which you can utilize for your fan engagement activities. So in this way, what will be the only and the last platform you are going to deal with? Number 1, Snapchat. Number 2, Twitter. Number 3, Facebook. And number 4, Instagram. And give us the reason behind of it.
So I'm going to take the politics out of it. It benefits us all by not speaking about it, I think. But my favorite platform, personally, is Twitter. And I've heard, and what I've been most surprised about here in the last 24 hours is the lack of usage of Twitter here. But Twitter for me is the real-time sports bar. And it is a community of avid sports fans. And it is really, when we talk about celebrating the internet and the creativity of the internet, for me, that's on Twitter. And I think if you're looking at a brand, if I was a brand building my programming strategy around a single platform today, I would probably say Instagram, and for much different reasons. But I think with the daily active users, even of the story feature on Instagram, we had a sports summit at Instagram's headquarters a month ago, and they said that they have 400 million daily active users of stories alone. And that's tremendous. And they are getting really good at creating meaningful platform adjustments to benefit our products, whether it's the swipe up functionality to drive commerce, the branded content functionality. It's really impressive what they're doing, and the engagement that we see on that platform dwarfs all the other platforms.
So Twitter.
Twitter for me, Instagram for a brand, no politics.
But no politics. But if you ask how many are actually using a Twitter here, how many actually using a Twitter here? Okay, not Koreans. Not in the Asian market, thank you. Okay, second question. I really don't understand why we are not actually using a Twitter. Okay, move on to the second question. How old is the social media if you consider it as a human being or person? Is it evolving stage or growing or at a maturation, or can you answer that?
It's in its infancy. And I'm so bullish on social as a whole, as distribution. We are in such an exciting time. 10 years ago, brands did not have a direct-to-consumer channel like this. Sports teams, your players, LeBron James goes live following a championship win from the locker room. It's tremendous, and we've never seen content like this before. And so I'm so excited that we are in its infancy. We're seeing platforms begin. We're seeing platforms die. We were just talking about earlier in the speaker room about TikTok. Like, these channels are not by any means mature, and they're figuring it out as they go, and so are we as marketers. I think Max mentioned Facebook Watch. We've completely transitioned our Facebook programming strategy because we've seen the Facebook algorithm in the United States favor watch. And that happened because of intel that we received from the platform. And so we are daily updating our programming strategy because the platforms are daily updating their algorithms and new features. The 36 different ways to publish could be 40 tomorrow, but it could be 12, and we don't know. So it's a really exciting time to be in this field.
Okay. Also, we talked about this issue, right? In one of the, not the great guy, but one of the well-known social marketer, he said it. Gary Vaynerchuk. Yeah. Gary Vaynerchuk mentioned that no one can actually predict and foresee what's going to happen after 10 years from now. And also, he could not even imagine how social media network has been used in this way. He could not imagine we are living in the typing world, right? He said maybe 10 years from now on, no one is going to type. Just AI and voice recognition system will be too much developed, so we'll be just talking to our cell phone or whatever. All right, one last question. Already times are running out. Asian market and NFL, your prediction?
So how the NFL will engage with the Asian market?
Expansion potential? Do you see that it is as a...
I don't know. I hope so. But I would be lying if I could predict it. And I don't want to lie to you guys.
Okay. That's the questions I prepared today. And let's give I just forgot his name, sorry. George Tucker, give a big round of applause. Thank you. Thank you for your time.